I'm Elena. I'm 30 years old. And last Tuesday, I walked into what I thought was my birthday celebration, only to find myself standing trial in front of 80 relatives I'd known my entire life. My father, or the man I'd called father for 3 decades, handed me a manila envelope and said 5 words that shattered my world: "You're not really ours." My mother ripped my apartment keys from my purse before I could even process what was happening. My sister had her phone out, recording every second for her social media followers. 80 people. 80 faces I'd seen at every holiday dinner, every family gathering since I was a child. And not a single person spoke up for me. But then someone stepped forward from the back of the room. Someone my parents had sworn died before I was even born. My real father. And he didn't arrive empty-handed. Before I tell you what happened next, I need to ask something. Please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way, I can see how far my story has traveled. It means everything to me to know I'm not alone in this. Now, let me take you back 5 weeks to when my sister Rachel called with what she said was incredible news. Elena. Oh my God, you have to hear this. Rachel's voice practically vibrated through my phone speaker. I was in the hospital break room, halfway through a double shift in the cardiac unit. My younger sister didn't call often unless she needed money, a favor, or someone to listen to her latest drama about losing brand sponsorships. What's happening? I asked, keeping my voice low. Night shifts meant respecting the quiet. Mom and Dad are planning this huge surprise party for your 30th. They're inviting everyone: Grandma Rose, Uncle Michael, those cousins from Boston we haven't seen in years. Literally everyone in the family. I almost spilled my coffee all over my scrubs. A party. For me. In 30 years, my parents had never thrown me a birthday party. Not for my sweet 16. Not for my 21st. Not even when I graduated from nursing school with honors and landed a position in one of the best hospitals in the state. But Rachel? Her 21st birthday had been this $17,000 extravaganza at the Metropolitan Club. 200 guests, an 8-tier cake that cost more than my monthly rent. Dad gave this speech about how his princess was finally becoming a woman, how proud he was of everything she'd accomplished. My 21st birthday? Take out Chinese food at their house. Mom patted my shoulder afterward and said, "Things are tight this year, sweetheart. You understand, right?" I understood. I always understood. Rachel, are you absolutely sure about this? I asked carefully. Mom and Dad don't really, they've never done parties for me. I know, right? That's what makes it so special. They said turning 30 is huge. They want to do something memorable. She paused, and I could hear the smile in her voice. You have to pretend to be surprised though, okay? I totally wasn't supposed to tell you. I'll act surprised, I promised, my heart doing this strange flutter in my chest. After we hung up, I sat there in that fluorescent lit break room, staring at my lukewarm coffee and feeling something I hadn't let myself feel in years. Hope. Maybe things were finally changing. Maybe after 30 years of being invisible, they finally saw me. Really saw me. I thought that party would prove I mattered to them. I had no idea it would prove the exact opposite. The week leading up to the party, I did what I always do when I'm anxious. I ran numbers. 8 years as a cardiac nurse. 8 years of 12-hour shifts, of holding strangers' hands while they took their last breaths, of running codes and watching monitors and making split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death. And every single month for those 8 years, I'd sent $500 home to help my parents with expenses. $48,000 total. I'd never asked for it back. Never even mentioned it. That's what family does, right? You help when you can. Meanwhile, Rachel, with her 60,000 Instagram followers and exactly 0 paying jobs, still lived in their guest house. She'd never contributed a penny to household expenses. Last month, she'd asked Dad for $10,000 to invest in her personal brand. He transferred the money that same day. 3 years ago when my car died, I asked if I could borrow $1,500 for a down payment on something reliable. Dad looked at me like I'd asked him to donate a kidney. You're independent, Elena. Strong. You'll figure it out. So I figured it out. Took out a loan with a ridiculous interest rate, worked extra shifts, paid it off in 18 months. Mom's voice echoed in my head from 1,000 different conversations. Rachel's still finding her path. She needs our support. But you've always been so capable. You don't need us like she does. Capable. That was her favorite word for me. Translation, the one they could ignore. That night while I was laying out my outfit for the party, I caught myself thinking about something I'd buried for years. I'd never actually seen my birth certificate. The original one, I mean. Mom said it had been destroyed in some flood back in 2006. Funny thing though, I checked the county records once, just out of curiosity. There was no major flood in our area in 2006. But I pushed that thought away like I always did. Why would my parents lie about something like that? 4 days before the party, I got the email I'd been waiting 6 years to receive. I was being considered for the head nurse position in my unit. The interview was scheduled for 2 weeks out. Everything I'd worked for, every extra shift, every weekend I'd sacrificed, every moment of exhaustion, it was all finally leading somewhere. There was just one requirement. The hospital board wanted a professional recommendation letter from someone with institutional connections. Someone who could speak to my character and work ethic on a deeper level. Your father used to serve on our advisory board, didn't he? My supervisor asked. Thomas Chen. A letter from him would carry significant weight with the selection committee. So I called Dad. A recommendation letter? He sounded almost pleased. Warm. Of course, sweetheart. I'd be honored to write one for you. I nearly cried from relief. Finally, he was proud of me. I'll give it to you at your birthday party, he continued smoothly. Make it special. A father presenting his daughter's future to the whole family. Something about his tone felt wrong. Too rehearsed. Too smooth. But I dismissed it. Maybe he was just being sentimental. 30 was a big milestone, after all. That sounds perfect, Dad. Thank you so much. Anything for my girl. My girl. He'd never called me that before. That had always been Rachel's title. I hung up feeling lighter than I had in months. The promotion. The party. The letter. Everything was finally falling into place. I was even ahead on saving for my own apartment. 4 more months and I'd have enough for a security deposit and first month's rent on my own place. For the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, my family was finally seeing me. I bought a new dress for the party. Deep burgundy, elegant but understated. I wanted to look professional. Worthy. I had no idea I was dressing for my own destruction. The night of the party, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror barely recognizing the woman staring back. The burgundy dress fit perfectly. I'd done my makeup carefully, subtle, polished, professional. I'd even bought a gift for my parents, a custom-made photo book I'd spent weeks creating, filled with family memories spanning 3 decades. Ridiculous, right? Bringing a gift to your own birthday party. But that was me. Always giving. Always trying to earn something that should have been given freely. I remember being 8 years old, spending hours making a Father's Day card for Dad. Construction paper, markers, glitter glue, the works. I'd written "You're my hero" in my neatest handwriting. Dad glanced at it, then picked up Rachel's scribbled drawing and said, "Now this is art. We're putting this one on the fridge, princess." My card went in a drawer. I found it years later, still sealed in its envelope, never opened. From that day on, I tried harder. Studied harder. Worked harder. Achieved more. I thought if I could just be good enough, smart enough, successful enough, they'd finally look at me the way they looked at Rachel. 30 years of trying. Before leaving my apartment, I checked my reflection one last time. Tonight's going to be different, I whispered to my reflection. They're throwing you a party. They're proud of you. Dad's writing you a letter. Everything's changing. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. That's when I saw her. Rachel, sitting in her car outside my building, phone pointed at my Honda. Hey. I called out, walking over. What are you doing? She grinned, tucking her phone away quickly. Nothing. Just. I love your car. Can I borrow it sometime? Sure, I said automatically, because that's what I always said. Her smile widened. Perfect. See you at the party, sis. Something cold twisted in my stomach, but I ignored it. I was good at ignoring warning signs. The Riverside Manor glittered like a promise. Through the tall windows, I could see warm light, the shadows of dozens of people moving inside. My parents had reserved the entire banquet hall, something they'd only ever done for Rachel's college graduation party. I sat in my car for a moment, practicing my surprised expression. Hand over my heart, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Oh my goodness. You shouldn't have. Silly, but I wanted to give them what they wanted. I wanted this night to be perfect. I walked through the entrance, my heels clicking against polished marble. A hostess directed me down a long corridor. The Chen party? Right through those double doors at the end. I took a deep breath, smoothed my dress, and pushed open the doors. Silence. No balloons. No streamers. No chorus of surprise. Just 80 faces turning toward me in perfect unison. Nobody was smiling. I scanned the room desperately. There was Uncle Michael, arms crossed, jaw clenched tight. Aunt Sarah, clutching her handbag like a shield, eyes darting away from mine. Cousins, second cousins, people I hadn't seen since childhood. All watching me with this mixture of pity and judgment that made my skin crawl. No cake. No decorations. Just a long table at the center of the room. And on that table, a single crimson folder. My parents stood behind it like judges at a sentencing. Dad held a microphone. Elena. His voice echoed through speakers I hadn't noticed before, cold and formal. Sit down. We need to have a conversation. My legs moved on autopilot. I lowered myself into a chair that had been positioned facing the table. Facing them. Like a defendant facing prosecution. That's when I noticed the woman in the corner with professional camera equipment. Not a party photographer. A videographer. They were documenting this. Dad. My voice came out smaller than I intended. What's going on? He didn't answer. He just opened the crimson folder with deliberate slowness. Elena, do you know why we invited 80 people here tonight? His voice was ice. My birthday? The words sounded pathetic even to my own ears. No. He shook his head slowly, deliberately. To serve as witnesses. The room shifted. Chairs creaked. Someone coughed. Witnesses to what? Dad pulled a document from the folder. His hand was steady. Practiced. Like he'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. This is a DNA analysis. He held it up for everyone to see. Your mother and I submitted samples 4 months ago. The results are conclusive. My heart stopped. You are not our biological daughter. The room erupted in whispers. Gasps. I heard someone mutter, I always knew something was off about her. What? I gripped the armrests of my chair. That's impossible. You're not ours, Elena. Mom stepped forward, and her face was twisted into something ugly I'd never seen before. You never were. We took you in. We raised you. We gave you everything. Her voice rose. And how did you repay us? By spreading lies about us to your friends, Dad cut in, his voice growing louder. By acting like we were never good enough. By complaining that Rachel got special treatment when you were the one who got everything. I never. We have witnesses. Dad gestured to the crowd. People who've heard you complain. People who've heard you trash us behind our backs. People who know the truth about your ingratitude. My mind reeled. Yes, I'd vented to friends. Who doesn't? But I'd never lied. Never exaggerated. I'd only ever told the truth. Dad pulled another paper from the folder. A spreadsheet. Columns of numbers, dates, amounts. This is an itemized accounting of everything we spent raising you. Food. Clothing. Education. Medical care. Housing. He paused for effect. $520,000. The number hung in the air like a guillotine. And we want it back. What happens when Elena's entire world collapses in front of 80 witnesses? And who is the mysterious man standing in the shadows, watching everything unfold? Part 2 is coming next. You won't believe what I discovered about my real family. Before I could even process the number Dad had just thrown at me, $520,000, Mom moved. Fast. She grabbed my wrist, her fingers digging into my skin as she pried open my hand and snatched my apartment keys. These keys, she held them up like evidence in a courtroom, are to an apartment you only afford because of your father's connections. That job you're so proud of? You only got it because Thomas served on the hospital board. I earned that position, I managed to say, my voice shaking. Every shift, every certification, every. Your salary comes from an institution where your father had influence, Mom continued, her voice sharp as broken glass. Without him, you'd be nothing. Everything you have, you owe to us. I looked around desperately. 80 relatives. People who'd been at my high school graduation. People who'd sent me birthday cards when I was little. People who'd told me they loved me. Not one of them moved. Uncle Michael actually nodded. She's got a point, Elena. Thomas opened a lot of doors for you over the years. That's not. I struggled to find words. That's not how any of this works. Smile for the camera, sis. Rachel appeared at my side, phone inches from my face, the red recording light blinking. This is incredible content, she whispered, but loud enough for me to hear. Family drama, DNA reveals, public confrontations, my followers are eating this up. Rachel, please stop. Shh. Keep talking. The comments are going insane. I looked at her screen. She was live streaming. To her 60,000 followers. Comments scrolling faster than I could read them. OMG, is this real? This is the most insane thing I've ever seen. That poor girl. The parents are psycho. Has to be fake, right? But it wasn't fake. This was my life being dissected, broadcast, destroyed. And my own sister was turning my humiliation into content. That's when something inside me shifted. Not broke. Shifted. Because in all the chaos, I noticed something strange. A man standing alone near the emergency exit. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. He wasn't dressed like my relatives, no department store blazer, no casual Sunday best. His suit was expensive. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, the kind of fabric that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Silver-threaded hair. Strong jawline. And his eyes. His eyes were locked on me. Not with judgment. Not with curiosity. With something that looked almost like pain. I didn't recognize him. He wasn't family, at least not the family I knew. He wasn't a friend of my parents as far as I could tell. So why was he here? At a private event? Standing in the shadows like he was waiting for something? Next to him stood a younger woman in a gray pencil skirt, clutching a thick folder. She kept checking her watch, then leaning close to whisper something to him. Each time, he shook his head. Patient. Watching. Elena. Dad's voice snapped my attention back. Are you even listening? Who is that man? I asked instead, pointing toward the corner. Dad's face flickered. Just for a second. With something I couldn't name. Fear? Recognition? No one, he said too quickly. Focus on what matters. You're going to sign this document. Thomas. The stranger's voice cut through the room like a knife through silk. Deep. Calm. Commanding. The entire banquet hall went silent. My father went pale. Not yet, the man said, almost gently. Let her finish asking questions first. Dad's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. No sound came out. Mom grabbed his arm. Thomas, who let him in? How did he even know about tonight? But neither of them answered. And the man in the gray suit just watched me, something shifting in his expression. Something that looked almost like hope. Elena. Dad's voice had changed. There was desperation now, barely hidden beneath the authority. I need you to sign this document. Tonight. In front of everyone. He slid a contract across the table. I could see the heading, promissory note. This legally obligates you to repay $520,000 over 12 years. Monthly payments of approximately $4,300. My breath caught. That was more than half my salary. I need time to read this, I said. You'll sign now. His eyes darted toward the stranger in the corner, then back to me. If you don't, we'll sue. 80 witnesses saw everything we provided for you. You admitted it yourself just now. You owe us. Thomas. The voice came from my left. Aunt Sarah, Mom's older sister, had risen from her seat. Her face was ashen, her hands trembling. Are you sure about this? She was speaking to Mom, but her eyes kept flicking toward the man in gray. If he finds out what we... Shut up, Sarah. Mom's voice cracked like a whip. The room went completely silent. But the receipts, Aunt Sarah started. I said shut up. What receipts? I asked. Nobody answered. Aunt Sarah. I turned to face her fully. What receipts are you talking about? She opened her mouth, closed it, looked at Mom, then at the floor. Nothing, she whispered. I shouldn't have said anything. But I saw her hand drift to her purse. I saw the way she clutched it tighter, like she was protecting something inside. Linda. Sarah's voice cracked. I still have them. The ones you asked me to destroy 20 years ago. I couldn't do it. I kept some of them. Mom's face went white as paper. Whatever was in that purse, whatever those receipts proved, my parents desperately didn't want me to know. But I was starting to understand something. I wasn't the one with secrets here. They were. Dad moved fast, grabbing the microphone and addressing the room with practiced authority. Family, friends, I want everyone here to witness this moment. He paused, scanning the crowd like a prosecutor addressing a jury. Tonight, Elena Chen, the woman we raised as our own daughter, will acknowledge her debt to this family. Uncle Michael started clapping. A few others joined in, uncertain but obedient. 30 years ago, Dad continued, Linda and I opened our home to a child nobody wanted. We sacrificed. We struggled. We gave her everything we had. More nodding. The narrative was working. I could see it spreading through the room like poison. I always said she seemed ungrateful, someone muttered. Never appreciated anything, another voice agreed. Elena. Dad turned back to me, microphone still in hand. Sign the document. Apologize to your family. And maybe, we can still have some kind of relationship. Rachel shoved her phone even closer to my face. Say something, Elena. My viewers want to hear you respond. I looked at the contract. $520,000. Payments until I was 42 years old. My entire future signed away to people who were publicly destroying me. And if I don't sign? My voice was steadier than I expected. Dad's expression hardened into something cold and final. Then I make a phone call to the hospital first thing tomorrow morning. I tell them their head nurse candidate is a fraud. A liar. A woman who refuses to honor her obligations to the family that raised her. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I served on that advisory board for 16 years, Elena. Who do you think they'll believe? Me, or you? The threat hung in the air like smoke. My career. My apartment. My future. Everything I'd built through years of sacrifice and exhaustion. He could destroy it all with one phone call. I had no leverage. No power. No allies. Or so I thought. I am a cardiac nurse. I've held dying patients' hands at 3 in the morning. I've delivered devastating news to families. I've stayed calm while monitors screamed and hearts stopped and everything descended into controlled chaos. I don't break under pressure. I can't afford to. So I took a breath. Then another. And I stopped being the scared little girl they expected me to be. Dad, I said, my voice cutting through the murmurs. I have a question. He frowned. This wasn't in the script. What? You said I'm not your biological daughter. That you have DNA proof. I leaned forward slightly. So who are my biological parents? Silence. They. Mom stepped in quickly. They abandoned you. They didn't want you. We saved you from a terrible situation. That's not what I asked. I stood up slowly. I asked who they are. Dead. Dad's answer came too fast. Too rehearsed. Both of them. Died in an accident years ago. Interesting. I was surprised by how steady I sounded. So if they're both dead, who provided the DNA sample you compared mine to? Dad's mouth opened. Nothing came out. DNA tests require comparison samples, I continued, using the same calm voice I used when explaining procedures to anxious patients. You can't just test my blood and declare I'm not yours. You need something to compare it to. I looked around the room. So whose DNA did you use? The crowd shifted. I saw confused looks, furrowed brows. The logic was landing. That's not your concern, Dad stammered. A dead person's DNA, I pressed. How did you get it? Did you exhume a body? Did you have samples stored somewhere for 30 years? More murmurs. Uncle Michael unfolded his arms. Or, I said quietly, is one of my biological parents not actually dead at all? In the corner, the man in the gray suit took a step forward. And for the first time that night, my father looked truly terrified. Oh. My. God. You guys. Rachel's voice shattered the tension like glass breaking. This is getting so good. She was still live streaming, still narrating my destruction like it was a reality show. So basically, my parents found out like 4 months ago that Elena isn't really their kid. Someone contacted Dad about it, I think it was a lawyer or something. And they've been planning this whole reveal ever since. Rachel. Mom's screech echoed off the walls. Turn that phone off right now. But the damage was done. I turned slowly to face my sister. 4 months ago, I said carefully. Someone contacted Dad. Rachel's eyes went wide as she finally realized she'd made a mistake. I wasn't supposed to say that. Who contacted him, Rachel? I took a step toward her. If my biological parents are dead, who reached out 4 months ago? She backed away, phone still recording. I don't know. I just saw an email on Dad's computer. Some law firm. Something about end of agreement and mandatory disclosure. Rachel, I swear to God, Dad lunged for her phone, but I was faster. I blocked his path. End of agreement, I repeated slowly. What agreement? What mandatory disclosure? The crowd was completely riveted now. Comments flooded Rachel's live stream. Thousands of people watching. Thousands of witnesses. There's no agreement, Mom shrieked. She's making things up. Rachel, tell them you're lying. But Rachel's face told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't lying. Someone had contacted my parents 4 months ago. Someone with lawyers. Someone forcing them to disclose something they'd kept hidden for 30 years. I turned toward the corner. The man in the gray suit had moved closer. Maybe 15 feet away now. His eyes were wet. And when I looked at him, really looked, I saw something I should have recognized immediately. My eyes. He had my eyes. You're not dead, I whispered. He shook his head slowly, tears streaming down his face. No, sweetheart, he said softly. I'm not. Who is this man? And what agreement did my parents make 30 years ago? The truth about my real family is about to come out, and it's going to destroy everything my parents built their lies on. Part 3 reveals the secret they've been hiding for 3 decades. The man stepped forward and the crowd parted like water. Security. Dad's voice cracked with panic. Someone call security. This man is trespassing. But nobody moved. Nobody even reached for their phones. Because something had shifted in the room. You could feel it. The story my parents were trying to tell was crumbling, and everyone knew it. My name, the man said, his voice filling the space with quiet authority, is Marcus Whitfield. He stopped a few feet from me. And I am Elena's biological father. The room exploded. Gasps. Shouts. 80 phones emerging from pockets and purses all at once. I couldn't breathe. You. I stared at him. You're supposed to be dead. Marcus's jaw tightened. Is that what they told you? I nodded, unable to form words. I have never been dead, Elena. His voice softened, became gentle. I've been waiting. Waiting for 30 years. Waiting for this exact day. He's lying. Mom screamed, her composure finally shattering completely. He's a con artist. A fraud. Thomas, tell them. But Dad was frozen. His face the color of ash. Thomas. Marcus turned to face him, and something cold entered his tone. Would you like to tell her the truth? Or should I? Silence. Marcus nodded slowly, like he'd expected this. I thought so. He turned back to me, and his expression transformed. Became tender. Almost heartbroken. Your mother, your biological mother, her name was Catherine. Catherine Hayes. His voice caught. We loved each other very much. When she became pregnant with you, her family. He paused, composing himself. Her family disapproved. They forced her to give you up for adoption. Then how? I couldn't finish the sentence. The Chens agreed to adopt you under very specific conditions. His eyes flickered toward my parents. Conditions they were extremely well compensated for. The floor tilted beneath me. What conditions? Marcus reached into his jacket and withdrew a photograph. Old, slightly faded, the edges soft from years of handling. A young woman with my face. My eyes. My smile. This was your mother, he said softly, offering me the photograph. And she loved you more than anything in this world. I took it with shaking hands. The woman in the picture couldn't have been more than 22. She was laughing at something off camera, her whole face lit up with joy. She looked exactly like me. The woman in the pencil skirt, Marcus's assistant, stepped forward and handed him the thick manila folder she'd been carrying. Thomas, Marcus said, his voice dangerously calm. You just demanded that Elena repay $520,000 for the cost of raising her. That's right. Dad's voice was weak now. Defensive. Every penny we spend on her. Interesting. Marcus opened the folder. Because according to my records, you've already been paid. He pulled out a stack of papers and held them up for the room to see. Bank statements. Transaction records. Dozens of them. $1,500, Marcus's voice carried to every corner of the room. Every single month for 29 years. Starting in March 1996. Ending just last year in February. He paused. That's $522,000, Thomas. $522,000 I paid you to raise my daughter. The crowd erupted. Confusion rippled through the relatives like a shockwave. What is he talking about? Uncle Michael demanded. These are wire transfer records. Marcus began handing stacks of paper to the nearest tables. Feel free to examine them. Every payment is documented. Dates. Amounts. Account numbers. He paused, looking directly at my mother. And Linda's signature on every single receipt confirming she received the money. Mom let out a strangled sound. I turned to face her, this woman who'd raised me, who'd fed me Mom's meatloaf on my 21st birthday and told me money was tight. You. My voice came out as a whisper. You received money for 29 years? $1,500 every month? She wouldn't meet my eyes. Answer me. My voice cracked. It was compensation. She finally screamed. For taking you in. For raising someone else's. Unwanted? Marcus's voice cut like a blade. Is that what you were going to say? He took a step forward, and I saw tears streaming down his face. I begged to keep her. I begged to raise her myself. But Catherine's family. His voice broke. They demanded I wait until she turned 30. They demanded I stay away, that I let you raise her without interference. He looked at me, his eyes full of 3 decades of pain. And I agreed. Because I thought you would love her. I thought you would give her a good life. His voice cracked completely. I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. Marcus reached into his jacket one more time. This time, he pulled out an envelope. Old, yellowed with age, the edges soft from years of handling. Your mother, Catherine. He had to stop. Breathe. Start again. She passed away when you were 6 years old. My heart stopped. Cancer, he said quietly. She fought it for 3 years. But in the end, he couldn't finish. I felt tears sliding down my own cheeks. Before she died, Marcus continued, his voice trembling, she wrote you a letter. She gave it to me and asked me to keep it safe. To give it to you when you were old enough to understand everything. He held out the envelope with both hands, like an offering. Like something sacred. I took it. My fingers were shaking so badly I could barely open it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, covered in elegant handwriting that felt somehow familiar. Like a song I'd heard in a dream but couldn't quite remember. My dearest Elena. If you're reading this, I'm no longer with you. I'm sorry, baby girl. I'm so sorry I couldn't stay longer. I want you to know that you were never unwanted. You were never a mistake. From the moment I knew you existed, you were the greatest gift of my life. Your father, Marcus, is a good man. The best man I've ever known. I was too young, too scared to fight for us when it mattered. And that's my biggest regret. Please don't blame him for being absent. He wanted you. He always wanted you. Live your life with courage, my darling. Be kind. Be strong. And know that wherever I am, I'm watching over you with more love than you could ever imagine. I love you. I will always love you. Mom. I couldn't see through the tears anymore. The letter blurred, then disappeared as I pressed it against my chest. 80 people watched in absolute silence. And for the first time that night, I didn't feel alone. I felt found. I need to say something. Aunt Sarah's voice cut through the silence like thunder. She stood up, still clutching her purse against her chest. Sarah, sit down. Mom's voice was pure venom. No. Sarah shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I've kept your secrets for 30 years, Linda. I can't do it anymore. She opened her purse and pulled out a small stack of papers. Wrinkled, faded, some spotted with age. These are receipts, she said, her hands trembling as she held them up. Bank receipts. Every month, Linda asked me to pick up wire transfers in cash from the bank. She told me it was from a life insurance policy. Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in it. I believed her for years. I believed her until 5 years ago when I saw Marcus's name on one of the transfers by accident. She looked at Mom with something like disgust. I confronted her. She told me if I said anything, she'd tell everyone about Sarah's voice broke. About my own mistakes. Things I'd done that I was ashamed of. She blackmailed me into silence. I looked at my adoptive mother, really looked at her, and saw someone I'd never truly recognized before. Someone capable of things I'd never imagined. You knew, I said slowly, each word deliberate. All this time, you knew I had a father who wanted me. Who was paying to make sure I was cared for. And you let me believe I was unwanted. Mom's face twisted. We raised you. We fed you. We put a roof over your head. With his money. I gestured toward Marcus. You raised me with his money. And you still treated me like I was worth nothing. I stood, finally steady on my feet. You didn't want $520,000 from me tonight, I said, my voice cold and clear. You wanted to get rid of me before he could tell me the truth. Before I found out what you really were. Mom opened her mouth, but no words came out. Because there was no defense for what they'd done. No excuse that would make sense. No apology that could matter. Dad made one last desperate attempt. Elena, listen to me. His voice had changed. Softer now. Almost pleading. We're still your family. We raised you. We love you. This was all just a terrible misunderstanding. A misunderstanding? I almost laughed. Almost. You staged a public humiliation. You demanded $500,000. You threatened to destroy my career. You had Rachel live stream my devastation to thousands of people. I shook my head. That's not a misunderstanding. That's betrayal. But we're still your parents. No, I cut him off. The word came out calm. Final. You're not. I looked him directly in the eyes. You're the people who took money to raise me, then treated me like a burden. You're the people who lied to me for 30 years. You're the people who weaponized my own birthday to try to destroy me. I turned to face the crowd. All 80 of them. I'm not asking any of you to choose sides, I said clearly. This is between me and them. But I will say this. I paused, looking at each familiar face. Not one of you stood up for me tonight. Not when they called me a fraud. Not when they took my keys. Not when my sister put a camera in my face for her followers. Silence. Eyes dropping to the floor. 80 people, I said quietly. And not one voice of defense. I won't forget that. Finally, I turned to Marcus. Mr. Whitfield. I stopped. Swallowed hard. Marcus. I need time. I can't call you Dad. Not yet. This is all too much. His eyes were wet, but he nodded. Understanding. I've waited 30 years, he said softly. I can wait a little longer. I walked toward the door. Mom tried to block my path. You can't just leave. We're not finished. Yes, I looked her in the eye one last time. We are. I stepped around her. And I walked out of that banquet hall. And I never looked back. I left that room behind, but the story was far from over. What happened next would expose even more lies, and give me the closure I never knew I needed. Part 4 reveals the aftermath that nobody saw coming. I wasn't there for what happened after I left. But Aunt Sarah told me everything later. And Rachel's live stream, which she apparently forgot to turn off, captured every painful, devastating second. The moment the door closed behind me, the room erupted like a bomb had gone off. Thomas turned on Linda with fury I'd apparently never seen in 30 years of knowing him. You knew? His voice shook the walls. You knew there was money this whole time and you never told me? I was protecting us. Linda screamed back. Protecting this family. Protecting this family by lying to me for 29 years? By hiding over $500,000? You never asked questions. You just spent what I gave you and never wondered where it came from. The relatives scattered like roaches when lights come on. Uncle Michael tried to calm Thomas down and got shoved backward for his trouble. Grandma Rose grabbed her coat and slipped out a side exit without a word. Aunt Sarah quietly gathered her things and left, but not before sending me a text. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I'll tell you everything. I promise. And Rachel? Rachel stood frozen, watching her follower count drop in real time. Within 6 hours, her live stream had been clipped, shared, and viewed over 3 million times. But not the way she wanted. Toxic family exposes themselves on live stream. Worst parents ever caught on camera. Influencer documents her own family's destruction for clout. The comments were merciless. You're disgusting for filming this. Imagine exploiting your sister's trauma for views. This is the lowest thing I've ever seen. Brands she'd been negotiating with pulled out immediately. Her authentic family content suddenly looked very different in context. As for Marcus, he left the restaurant quietly. No drama. No confrontation. He didn't need revenge. He'd come with truth, and truth had done its work. That night, sitting alone in my apartment, I read Catherine's letter 17 times. I traced her handwriting with my fingertips, trying to feel some connection to a mother I'd never known but who had loved me anyway. I looked at the photograph Marcus had given me. My mother at 22, laughing at something off camera. Her eyes, my eyes, bright with joy. I cried until I couldn't breathe. But somewhere beneath the grief, beneath the shock and the betrayal and the overwhelming weight of everything I'd learned, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The kind of hope that comes from finally knowing who you really are. 4 days later, I was called into the hospital director's office. I walked in expecting the worst. Thomas had promised to destroy my career. He had connections. Influence. 16 years on the advisory board. Dr. Patricia Rodriguez sat behind her desk, her expression unreadable. Please, sit down. I sat. My heart pounding so hard I thought she might hear it. Elena, I'm going to be direct with you. She folded her hands on the desk. I received an email from Thomas Chen yesterday, demanding that we terminate your employment immediately. My stomach dropped through the floor. He claims you're unfit for the head nurse position. That you have severe character issues. She paused. He also attached a video. Said it would demonstrate your true nature. I closed my eyes. The live stream. Of course. I watched it, Dr. Rodriguez said quietly. I can explain. Elena. Her voice was gentle. I watched you stand in front of 80 people who were actively trying to destroy you. I watched you keep your composure, ask intelligent questions, and walk out with your dignity completely intact. I opened my eyes. I also received a phone call, she continued, leaning back in her chair. From Marcus Whitfield. Do you know who he is? My biological father. He owns 6 hospitals in the Northeast region. She smiled slightly. He called specifically to tell me that he would not be interfering in any employment decisions regarding you. He said, and I quote, Elena deserves to succeed on her own merits, not because of who her father is. I couldn't speak. The head nurse position is yours, Elena. Dr. Rodriguez stood and extended her hand. You earned it. Congratulations. I shook her hand, barely able to process what was happening. One more thing, she said, and now she was smiling fully. Thomas Chen's email didn't hurt your case. But it certainly damaged his own reputation. The board has voted to formally remove his name from our benefactor wall. Small victories. But that one felt pretty damn good. 3 weeks after the party, Sarah called with updates. Thomas and Linda were filing for divorce. Not because of me, or not entirely because of me. The night of the party, Thomas had gone through Linda's personal files while she was sleeping. He'd found more than just wire transfer records from Marcus. Hidden bank accounts. Purchases she'd concealed for years. A secret credit card with a $47,000 balance. Turns out your mother, Sarah told me over coffee, had been planning her escape for over a decade. She'd been hiding money, buying things and hiding them at my house, preparing to leave him. She laughed bitterly. Thomas just gave her the excuse she needed to finally go. The irony wasn't lost on me. They'd staged a public trial to expose my supposed betrayal. Instead, they'd exposed their own. Rachel lost over 25,000 followers in the first week alone. The comments that followed her everywhere were brutal. Aren't you the girl who live-streamed her sister's trauma? Imagine exploiting your family for content. Couldn't pay me to follow this garbage human. She deleted her TikTok account completely. Started fresh on a new platform with a different name. Last I heard, she was doing meditation and wellness content now. The irony of that makes me laugh every single time. Thomas tried to reach me once. A long email that somehow managed to apologize while still blaming everyone but himself. I'm sorry things happened the way they did, but you have to understand the pressure I was under. The secrets your mother kept from me. The position you put us in by. I deleted it without finishing. Linda called 17 times over the next month. I let every call go to voicemail. The messages got progressively more desperate. First angry. Then pleading. Then weepy. Elena, please. We can fix this. We're still family. I made mistakes, but I did my best. You have to understand. Please don't abandon me like this. I raised you. I loved you. I didn't respond to any of them. Not because I hated them. Not because I wanted revenge. But because I'd finally learned something it took me 30 years to understand. Some relationships can't be repaired. They can only be survived. Tell me in the comments. And if you've dealt with something similar, share your story. You're not alone. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life. Do you think Elena should forgive her adoptive parents? Comment A if you think yes, B if you think no, and C if you think it depends on what happens next. Because what I learned in the months that followed changed everything. Let me finish the story. The final chapter reveals how Elena rebuilt her life from the ground up, and whether she ever found a way to truly move forward. Part 5 is the conclusion you won't want to miss. 6 weeks after the party, I met Marcus for the second time. Not at his corporate headquarters. Not at some expensive restaurant designed to impress. At a coffee shop called The Daily Grind. A tiny place with mismatched furniture, questionable Wi-Fi, and coffee that was honestly just okay. Catherine and I used to come here, Marcus explained, settling into a worn armchair. Before everything fell apart. We'd sit in this exact corner and talk for hours about our future together. I looked around at the peeling paint, the crooked picture frames, the general shabbiness of it all. It's not what I expected, I admitted. What did you expect? I don't know. Something bigger. More impressive. Marcus smiled. A sad smile that made him look younger somehow. Money doesn't fix everything, Elena. I learned that the hardest way possible. He stirred his coffee slowly, not drinking it. I could have fought harder for you. I could have hired better lawyers. Used my resources to pressure Catherine's family. Forced the issue. Why didn't you? Because Catherine asked me not to. He looked at me, and I saw 30 years of regret in his eyes. She was dying, and she was terrified. Terrified that if I pushed too hard, her family would take you somewhere I'd never find you. His voice cracked. She made me promise to wait. To trust that the Chengs would do right by you. To believe that love would be enough. They didn't, I said quietly. No. His voice was barely a whisper. They didn't. And I will never forgive myself for not seeing that sooner. We sat in silence for a while. The coffee shop hummed with life around us, conversations, laughter, the hiss of the espresso machine. I don't know how to do this, I finally admitted. I don't know how to have a father. Marcus reached across the table and gently took my hand. Neither do I, really, he said with a small smile. But I'd like to try. If you'll let me. I looked down at his hand holding mine. Looked at this man who'd waited 3 decades for this moment. Okay, I said softly. Let's try. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. 4 months after the party, I signed the lease on my own apartment. It wasn't fancy. A 1-bedroom on the 4th floor of an older building with a kitchen barely bigger than a closet and windows that stuck when it rained. But it was mine. Every penny of the security deposit came from my own savings. My own paychecks. My own years of working double shifts and skipping vacations and saying no to things I wanted. Marcus offered to help with the down payment. I said no. I need to do this myself, I told him over coffee at the Daily Grind. Our weekly ritual now. Always the same corner. Always the same conversation mixed with comfortable silence. He nodded. I understand. And he did. That was the thing about Marcus. He understood that helping didn't mean rescuing. That being a father didn't mean taking over. He showed up on moving day anyway. Not with money or professional movers, but with a toolbox and a willingness to spend 7 hours assembling furniture that should have taken 3. We put together a bookshelf that came out slightly crooked. It was perfect. On my new desk, I placed Catherine's photograph in a simple wooden frame. Every morning when I wake up, I look at her face and I see myself. Sometimes I talk to her. Tell her about my day. About the promotion. About Marcus. About how I'm learning to trust again. I don't know if she can hear me. But it helps anyway. I don't talk to Thomas anymore. Or Linda. Or Rachel. Sarah calls sometimes. She's the only Chen I still speak to. She sends me recipes. Asks about work. Never mentions the party. I think she feels guilty. I think she's trying to make amends in her own small way. I let her. Because forgiveness isn't always grand gestures and tearful reunions. Sometimes it's just letting someone try. Marcus and I see each other every Sunday now. Sometimes we talk for hours. Sometimes we just sit in comfortable silence, drinking mediocre coffee and watching the world go by. I'm learning who he is. His quiet humor. His deep regrets. His gentle strength. I'm not ready to call him dad yet. But I'm getting closer. Last week, he showed me a photo of Catherine I'd never seen before. Her holding a pregnancy test, tears streaming down her face, the biggest smile I've ever seen. That was the day she found out about you, he said softly. She called me right after. Said it was the happiest moment of her life. I cried looking at that photo. But they were good tears. The kind that heal instead of hurt. Looking back now, I've spent a lot of time trying to understand why. Why did Thomas and Linda do what they did? My therapist, yes, I'm in therapy now, best decision I ever made, explained it to me this way. Thomas wasn't evil. He was terrified. His entire identity was built on control. When Marcus resurfaced, that control was threatened. He didn't attack you because he hated you. He attacked because he was scared of being exposed. It doesn't excuse what he did. But it explains it. Linda was more complicated. She carried jealousy like a second skin. Jealousy of Catherine, the woman Marcus truly loved. Jealousy of me, the living reminder of that love. Every time she looked at my face, she saw the daughter of her husband's imagined rival. She never bonded with me because she never let herself. And when the opportunity came to get rid of me while keeping the moral high ground, she took it. Again, not an excuse. An explanation. And me? What was my role in all of this? Here's the hard truth. I made it easy for them. 30 years of people-pleasing. 30 years of swallowing my needs to keep the peace. 30 years of telling myself that if I just tried harder, loved harder, gave more, they would finally see my worth. They never did. Because people who use you don't want you to have worth. Your unworthiness is what makes them feel powerful. I was so busy trying to earn their love that I never stopped to ask if they were capable of giving it. Here's what I want you to take from my story, if anything. Your value isn't determined by how others treat you. If someone consistently makes you feel like you're not enough, not good enough, not grateful enough, not worthy enough, that's information. Listen to it. Setting boundaries isn't revenge. It's self-respect. And sometimes, the family you're born into isn't the family you're meant to keep. I'm 30 years old now. I have a job I love. An apartment that's mine. A biological father who's learning how to be present. And a future I'm building myself, one deliberate choice at a time. The Chens wanted to destroy me. Instead, they set me free. And honestly, that might be the only gift they ever truly gave me. 6 months after the party, I received a letter in the mail. From Linda. I almost threw it away without opening it. But something made me pause. I sat on my slightly crooked couch in my tiny apartment and opened the envelope with shaking hands. Elena. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even know if I deserve the chance to ask, but I need you to know that I'm sorry. Not for the party, though I'm sorry for that too. But for all the years before it. For every time I made you feel less than. For every time I chose Rachel over you. For every moment I let you believe you weren't wanted. You deserved better. You deserved a mother who could see past her own jealousy and insecurity. You deserved to be loved for who you were, not resented for who you came from. I don't know if this means anything to you now. But I'm in therapy. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I hurt you the way I did. I'm not asking for a relationship. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you were never the problem. I was. Linda. I read that letter 3 times. I cried. Not because it fixed anything. Not because it erased 30 years of pain. But because it was the first time she'd ever taken responsibility without blaming anyone else. I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. But I kept the letter. Tucked it into Catherine's photo album next to the picture of her smiling at the camera. 2 mothers. 2 very different kinds of love. Both part of my story. Marcus asked me once if I hated them. Thomas and Linda, I mean. We were sitting in our corner at the daily grind, watching rain streak down the windows. I don't know, I said honestly. Some days I do. Some days I feel nothing. Some days I just feel sad. For all of us. He nodded. That's fair. Do you hate them? I asked. He thought about it for a long time. I hate what they did to you, he finally said. I hate that they took money meant to give you a good life and used it while treating you like a burden. I hate that they stole 30 years from us. He paused. But hate takes energy, Elena. Energy I'd rather spend getting to know my daughter. My throat tightened when he said my daughter. Is that what I am? I asked quietly. Your daughter? If you want to be, he said gently. No pressure. No expectations. Just an offer. I looked at this man who'd waited 3 decades for this moment. Who'd paid $1,500 a month for 29 years. Who'd honored a dying woman's wishes even when it broke his heart. Yeah, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I think I'd like that. He smiled. And for the first time in 30 years, I felt like I had a father. I'm not going to pretend this story has a perfect ending. I still have nightmares sometimes about that party. About 80 faces staring at me in judgment. I still flinch when I see Thomas's name pop up in the news. He's still on boards, still making connections, still living his life like nothing happened. I still wonder sometimes what my life would have been like if Catherine had lived. If Marcus had fought harder. If the Chens had actually loved me the way they were paid to. But I'm also building something new. A life where I'm not constantly trying to earn my worth. A life where I can say no without guilt. A life where I'm surrounded by people who choose me, not people who tolerate me. Last Sunday, Marcus asked if I wanted to see where Catherine was buried. We drove 2 hours to a small cemetery outside the city. Walked through rows of headstones until we found hers. Catherine Marie Hayes' beloved daughter, loving mother 1974 to 2002. I stood there staring at her name carved in granite, and I finally let myself grieve the mother I never knew. Marcus put his arm around my shoulders. She would be so proud of you, he said quietly. Of the woman you've become. Of your strength. Your compassion. Your courage. You think so? I know so. I knelt down and traced her name with my fingers. Hi, Mom, I whispered. I'm sorry it took me so long to find you. But I'm here now. And I promise I'll make you proud. The wind rustled through the trees like an answer. Like a blessing. This is where my story ends. Or maybe it's where it really begins. I'm Elena. I'm 30 years old. I'm a head nurse in cardiac care. I have my own apartment with a crooked bookshelf. I have a father who shows up with a toolbox and patience. I have a mother whose photograph sits on my desk and whose letter I keep close to my heart. I have a sister who exploited me for content and parents who betrayed me for money. But I also have something they can never take away. I have myself. And after 30 years of trying to be enough for people who would never see my worth, I finally learned that I was always enough. I just needed to believe it. Thank you for staying with me until the end of this story. For listening. For caring. For being here. If this resonated with you, if you've experienced something similar, if you're struggling with toxic family dynamics, if you're trying to figure out when to hold on and when to let go, please know you're not alone. Your story matters. Your pain is valid. And your decision to protect yourself is not selfish. It's survival. And sometimes, survival is the bravest thing we can do. Take care of yourselves. Choose people who choose you. And remember, you were always enough. You just needed someone to see it. Even if that someone is you.